Got a couple of cool chapters here tonight. I always say that. Never like, thanks for tuning in. This is gonna be boring.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Hi, I'm Seth.
And I'm Patrick. Chapter 27 of The Shadow Rising, Within the Ways, and our symbol is, of course, the Aventusora leaf, or the trefoil leaf.
And that's the leaf for the ways, because I think there's also the leaf that's a little bit wider, the other icon, that's more like gardens and ogier and a little more naturey, whereas this one very much appears to be the ways. The key, yeah.
The darkness of the ways compressed the light of Perrin's pole lantern to a sharp-edged pool around himself and Gaul. The creak of his saddle, the gritty click of hooves on stone, seemed to reach no further than light's rim. There was no smell to the air, nothing. The Aielman strode along beside Stepper easily, keeping an eye on the dimly seen lantern glow from Loial's party ahead. Perrin refused to call it Faile's. The ways did not seem to bother Gaul, for all their reputation. Perrin himself could not help listening, as he had for nearly 2 days, or what passed for days, in this lightless place. His ears would be first to catch the sound that meant they were all going to die, or worse. The sound of wind rising where no wind ever blew. No wind, but Machin Shin, the black wind that ate souls. He could not help thinking that traveling the ways was slack-witted folly, but when need called, what was foolish changed. The faint light ahead stopped, and he drew rein in the middle of what appeared to be an ancient stone bridge, arcing through utter blackness. Ancient, because of the breaks in the bridge walls, the pits and shallow, ragged craters, freckling the roadbed. Very likely, it had stood close to 3,000 years, but it seemed ready to fall, now. Maybe right now. The pack-horse crowded up behind Stepper. The animals whickered to each other and rolled their eyes uneasily at the surrounding dark. Perrin knew how the horses felt. A few more people for company would have lifted some of the endless night's weight. Still, he would not have gone any closer to the lanterns ahead, even if he had been alone, not in risk a repeat of what had happened back on the first island, right after entering the Waygate in Tyr. He scratched his curly beard irritably. He was not sure what he had expected, but, not that, is the implication.
You know, two-party system is not good for anybody. Seriously, like, get those parties together. They're having a total shutdown of communications right now in this two-party system.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
This is the dreaded sequence where Faile and Perrin are kind of mean to each other and refuse to give in for everybody. I feel like this sequence annoys everybody, and for good reason, because they are being annoying people.
They're being annoying teenagers. They're being stubborn. He has what he thinks is a good reason. She thinks she has what she thinks is a good reason. And they're putting each other in danger.
Yeah, and everyone around them.
And it's really, really, really frustrating.
But the sequence we see Perrin flashback to is like a page or so of italicized writing. And essentially what happens is Loial opens the Waygate outside of Tyr, and Perrin just bursts through as everybody else is kind of like staring, ogling it, because him and Loial are the only two who have ever been through a Waygate before in the party, so he knows what's about to happen. And he's just kind of proudly leading Faile, even though he more or less agreed not to. And so when she gets to the island that he's waiting for her at, she punches him a couple of times. And then it doesn't say specifically what happens, but it does say that she is too prideful to sit gingerly.
Yes. He turned her over his knee and spanked the crap out of her.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah. If nothing else, just because Robert Jordan has a certain fascination with spanking.
It's understandable punishment.
But in some ways, that's kind of what Faile wants to happen. She wants someone who is, you know, when she gets physical, she wants someone who will essentially respond in a similar manner.
Yeah.
Now, whether the morality of that is not something I'm commenting on, but that is what she wants.
Yes.
She wants someone who's strong, and she interprets that as someone who's physically willing to take and dole out a little bit of physical contact.
I'll read this little paragraph after it. I actually didn't set this apart to read, but I feel like without reading the whole sequence, this kind of gives a good aftermath of the situation. She had been furious, of course, furious with Loial for trying to intervene. She could take care of herself, thank you very much. Furious with Bane and Chiad for not intervening. She had been taken aback when they said they did not think she would want them to interfere in a fight that she had picked. When you choose the fight, Bane had said, you must take the consequences, win or lose. But she did not seem even the tiniest bit angry with him any longer. That made him nervous. She had only stared at him, her dark eyes glistening with unshed tears, which made him feel guilty, which in turn made him angry. Why should he be guilty? Was he supposed to stand there and let her hit him to her heart's content? She had mounted Swallow and sat there, very stiffed back, refusing to sit gingerly, staring at him with an unreadable expression. It made him very nervous. He almost wished she had pulled a knife. Almost.
And often that unreadable expression is when she is considering. She's not angry, because when she's angry, we know.
Yeah, and this keeps popping into my head, so I'm just going to say it, but I don't know how to make this like a PG statement. Whatever happened there, and whatever her reasoning is, she liked the outcome. I don't know how else to say that. But she isn't mad at him afterward.
There is a certain level of consent going on.
Maybe they get that all sussed out and it's fine. It is kind of cute, though.
There's a certain amount of relationship dynamics that are going on here they're trying to figure stuff out and discovering things about themselves they may not have been aware of.
Well said.
And also the way their cultures are interacting. You know, I mean, that's the other thing that overlays both of these, is that Faile comes from a culture where, you know, there is a certain amount of physical violence expected. And I know we live in a culture where that's like really, really looked down upon.
Right.
But maybe if you have magic healers hanging around, things are a little different.
Sure, you know, crazy animal men running through the streets and eating children. You know, it would change the whole dynamic of everything.
Yeah. Saldea is at constant war and has been for, 3,000 years? Back to the breaking. Not every culture is what you would expect, and
unless you talk about no, I'm just gonna
right.
Leaving the vagaries that make this kind of seem BDSM-y just out of the episode. I think this is the best way to approach that.
I mean, I think we can talk about like people hit each other in private with consent, like they want to be hit and enjoy it, and enjoy, like, pain is part of pleasure in many circumstances, and to ignore that and ignore that that's part of this relationship is, I feel, doing it a disservice.
Oh god, yeah, no, I don't know how to approach this except to say that consent is sexy, kids.
Right.
Talk about everything first.
Talk about it, come up with rules, come up with guidelines, come up with boundaries, and then enjoy yourself.
Ah, yes, Prophet. The well-known slipper. So that appears a lot in the series.
It's fairly clear that Robert Jordan saw punishment and spanking as something that went hand in hand, but also something that was very sexy, and used it a lot in these novels. And as much as I really want to ask Harriet about that, I don't think I can get away with it.
There's a cute little bit that I wanted to point out where Bane and Chiad trying to lure Perrin away from the group. Yeah. They want to beat him up, I assume.
They do. Because he's breaking the rules because he went in first and isn't following, so they're doling out their form of, they feel he has toe and they're going to give him some G in the face. Possibly in the ribs.
That Perrin and Gall are following behind.
I noticed that Faile has a nice, sexy new dress.
Yeah, that she puts on right after that.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to look good for some reason. I kind of wanted to note that Perrin hates the ramps, and we get another description, which we've talked about this at length in other podcasts, in other episodes that talk about the ways, where they're you walk along this long curve, and then suddenly you realize you're below the platform you were before, and the characters don't seem to be able to understand how these things support themselves, and that's alarming.
I kind of imagine it like being on a corkscrew with little platforms.
Probably, but it's just a never-ending corkscrew with no conceivable spine to hold it up, or...
Yeah, it just goes all the way. There's no, like, ground. There's a void in every direction. So, what is it? Turtles all the way down? Like, there's got to be something. It exists in the dream of a dream. Here's an interesting point. I was listening to the audiobooks, and I heard Asmodean describe the space that was skimming as the dream of a dream. And I sort of think the ways go through that same space.
Yeah.
So that would be like the Tel'aran Riyadh of Tel'aran Riyadh. Since there's nothing living in Tel'aran Riyadh, there's nothing that dreams.
But I basically see it as that M.C. Escher painting where stairways do things and lead you to places where that shouldn't conceivably be possible.
But yeah, so there's that, there's always a different path that leads from the Waygate to your first junction. And then at every junction, there's essentially a signpost that tells you where to go, or at least tells Loial where to go. And so they've spent 2 days reading the guidings and traveling from platform to platform to platform on these weird spiral, crazy platforms that are now white stone and used to be, grassy and had fruit trees, so you didn't have to carry supplies. And the field, the sky was full of sun, and it was a beautiful, easy trip where everything was perfect. And there was no wind.
And now it's a creepy land of eternal night.
With no wind.
Except
most of the time.
Loial tells Faile, we find later, that like here it is. This is the gate to Manetheren. So it's taken them only like 2.5 days walking from Tyr to get all the way to, well, just outside the 2 rivers, to somewhere in the Mountains of Mist.
Probably 2,000, 3,000 miles, something like that.
Tangenting here. Finished the Broken Earth series last night. And started, because I've been telling Julia for a year that I would read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so I'm like I don't know, like 10% of the way through that first book, and now I forgive me if I call them the Misty Mountains. Mountains of Mist, Misty Mountains, which both remind me of the Great Smoky Mountains, because they all have those names for the same reason. Catch moisture from the sea, I imagine, and they're just foggy all the time.
The air hits the side of the mountain, and that forces it up, and then forces like warm, wet air into cool air, and just creates constant clouds and mist.
I think so. I will always remember that on the day that I climbed the highest peak on the Appalachian Trail, you couldn't see anything. I couldn't see 15 feet in front of my face. It was so foggy. It's like, oh, good, we climbed all the way up here for no reason. You have to take like a little side trail or something to get to the highest point, And I went all the way up there, and it was just like gray.
I love those views when you see someone like taking a picture of summit and just like a gray background, and you're like, "There's nothing there." It's like, congratulations, yes. You are the. And they're like, I love the view.
As far as you know, you could be at sea level.
Yeah, so worth it. There is something kind of magical about that kind of fog, though, when it's just like you can't see more than a couple of feet in front of you.
It's weird. We had a morning like that recently here where it was really foggy and like it sounds different, There's no ambient noise. Everything's muffled. It's weird.
It isolates you both in terms of like visual and auditory distance, and you feel like you exist in a isolated bubble.
Yeah, kind of like during a blizzard. Has a similar effect. Can't see anything, can't hear anything.
I can only imagine that if you're out where it's truly dark with that in that kind of cloud, it's just going to be pitch black.
Alarming.
Just alarmingly pitch black.
Loial says, yep, we're here.
I just want to make a point that the fact that they encountered these Trollocs is not random. These Trollocs have been... Faine has been moving Trollocs through the Waygates now for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's just a constant stream coming out. And so this is not Faine, Slayer.
Right.
Faine is with the White Cloaks. Although he does take possession of some of the Trollocs in some fades, I believe that Slayer is the one who's bringing them, or having them brought to aid him.
And to his credit, after this scene, or to their credit, I should say, probably, Perrin and Gaul... Perrin has the thought, and Gaul says it to Perrin, like, you think it was just a coincidence that all those Trollocs were right there, like right at the edge, waiting to... And Perrin's like, probably not, man. Also, I saw a bunch of ravens kill a falcon or a hawk. I'm not sure, but we'll get there.
And there was an arrow that came up from there. So Slayer was there in the forest waiting for the Trollocs to come out of the Waygate. He was there to meet them.
Is Slayer killing the birds of prey because they're preying on the Dark One's eyes?
I think he's just having fun.
Yeah,
he just likes killing things
because he's evil. Fair.
The name Slayer is apt.
He kills stuff.
That's what he likes to do. What he enjoys doing. And we talked a little bit about who he is, but remember, he is a combination of Isam and...
Luke, thank you.
Luke being related to Rand, and Isam being related to Lan. So it's like an evil Lan, evil Rand combo mixed together, which when you think about it is really fucking badass. When you add in the ability to, like, do what he does in the World of Dreams.
He is terrifying. We are here, Loial says. He pointed to the base of the guiding, where a wide pit-broken white line ran off, not to bridge or ramp, but into the darkness. The Waygate at Manetheren, Perrin. Perrin nodded, saying nothing. He was not about to suggest they follow the line, not and have Faile call him down for trying to take over. He rubbed his nose again absently. That almost imperceptible scent of rankness was irritating. He was not going to make even the most sensible suggestion. If she wanted to lead, let her. But she sat her saddle, fooling with her gloves, obviously waiting for him to speak so she could make some witty remark. She liked wittiness. He preferred saying what he meant. Irritably, he turned to Stepper, meaning to go on without her or Loial. The line led to the Waygate, and he could pick out the Avendosora leaf that opened it himself. Suddenly, his ear caught a muffled click of hooves from the darkness, and the fetid smell slammed home in his mind. "Trollocs!" he shouted. Gaul pivoted smoothly to slide a spear into the black-mailed chest of a wolf-snouted Trolloc, dashing into the light with a scythe-like sword upraised. In the same effortless motion, the Aiel pulled his spear point free and sidestepped to let the huge shape fall. More came behind it, though. All goat snouts and boar's tusks, cruel beaks and twisted horns, with curved swords and spiked axes and hooked spears. The horses danced and screamed. Holding his pole lantern high, the thought of facing these things in the dark gave him cold sweat. Perrin clawed for a weapon, swung at a face distorted by a sharp-toothed snout. He was surprised to realize he had pulled the hammer free of its lashings on his saddlebags, but if it did not have the axe's sharp edge, 10 pounds of steel wielded by a blacksmith's arm still sent the Trolloc staggering back, shrieking and clutching a ruined face. Loial dashed his polearm against a goat-horned head, and the lantern broke, bathing in burning oil. The Trolloc ran howling into the dark. The Ogier flailed about him with a stout pole, a switch in his huge hands, but one that landed with sharp cracks of splintering bone. One of Fail's knives blossomed in an all-too-human eye above a tusked snout. The Aiel danced the spears, having somehow found time to veil themselves. Perrin struck, and struck, and struck, a whirlwind of death that lasted a minute? 5? It seemed an hour. But suddenly, the Trollocs were down, those not already dead, kicking in their death throes.
It's Perrin's really first use of the hammer as a weapon.
Yeah, I think that is the first time. No, he uses it against the axe in the Bubble of Evil, doesn't he? He, bats it away?
No.
Am I making that up?
Yeah, I think he just grabs...
He just wrestles it? Well, there's a short bit of quiet as the humans and the Ogier kind of gather themselves back together, and then, of course, a myrrdraal leaps at them out of the darkness, with a roar like 100 pounds of bone falling into a huge meat grinder, black sword flickering like lightning.
They actually take him down relatively easily. I mean, he basically jumps into the light, and it's like arrow, spear, hammer.
Yeah.
Down.
Yeah.
They all react very quickly.
I think they all kind of hit it once, and Gaul's kind of on point, and Bane and Chiat are peppering it with arrows, and then Perrin kind of loses his mind for a second and flattens the thing with the hammer.
That does make... I guess the axe will take off Fade's head, but with the hammer, he just disintegrates it. Effective.
Once I got this would get gigs sometimes working as a teenager, and once it was just shitty kind of construction and demolition work that I would do on the weekends sometimes, and I had like an 8 or a 7-pound hammer that I got to break up a patio, a concrete patio. Somebody didn't. Yeah, it was terrible.
And he's swinging a 10-pound hammer.
But yeah, and I wasn't, and I was a kid. I wasn't in great shape or anything. It took like 2 days. But yeah, he's got a bigger hammer, and he's not swinging it at concrete.
Sometimes I get femur bones for timber, cow femur bones. He likes to chew on them, and after a while, he, has basically chewed everything off of it that he can get. And so I take a quick hammer to it and just crack it open, and it takes surprisingly little force to just shatter it, as I believe you found out last time.
Yeah. I went to do it for timber, and usually Seth does it, but I was like, I'll do it really quick, and I swung a hammer at it, and it, like, exploded. Like, shrapnel, like, hit the walls, and, like...
We try and crack it.
I didn't hit it that hard.
All right, Perrin. Jeez. A 10-pound hammer blow is devastating.
Yeah, that's huge.
Even we've talked about how there may be a difference in measurement in terms of how they measure pounds, and it may be closer to a 7-pound hammer. Even so, still ridiculous.
That makes sense. Your typical sledgehammer. The big ones are 8 pounds usually. Anyway.
He catches, once the fade has been destroyed, he catches sound of the black wind faintly in the distance and coming.
As well as more Trollocs who...
Yeah.
Weren't linked to the myrrdraal, but they're out there in the darkness wondering what to do now, and then he hears the wind as well.
I'm wondering if the violence attracts the black wind. That's sort of what I thought. The death and the violence draws it in.
I like the idea.
Because the Trollocs have been traveling through the ways, and I do think that they are more likely to encounter black wind. They're more likely to attract it. But both parties have been traveling through the ways to get to this gate. And then all of a sudden after the fight, the wind can... suddenly find them. I think as soon as you start spilling blood in the ways, you're going to attract the black wind.
I like that idea, and we know also that Trollocs have been gathering near this Waygate. This may be the first round. It may be it's at least the second round, is winter night.
Yeah. Well, and then all the Trollocs that are currently just hanging out there,
right, and traveling through. And I noticed in a couple of pages here when we hear Machin Shin singing.
Sing your screams.
It says things that it doesn't usually. These are seemed a little different. I wonder if it was because it has been eating so many Trollocs. It says bitter blood so bitter. Drink the blood and crack the bone and suck the marrow. Bitter marrow. Sweet screams, tiny souls, acrid souls. And I noticed that doesn't seem like it's talking about humans. It was talking about its last meal.
Very much sound like Trolloc souls. That's a good catch. I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, it's slightly different, but that made me think that it's singing about eating Trollocs this time.
I mean, it is eating Trollocs as it says that.
That's in like 2 pages, and so I kind of skipped a bit here, but basically all that really happens here, and stop me if there's anything you want to talk about, but it's pretty much just like Perrin saying, like, we better get the hell out of here. And everybody's like, yeah, go. And Loial says, like, I have to be last, and he's intending to lock the Waygate. Perrin yells at him to do it, and Loial's just like, just go. Like, I'm a step ahead of you.
It's kind of like bomb countdown, like get everyone through the door and shut the portal before the
yes.
I don't know. Before the airlock opens and blows you out, or before the bomb goes off, or before, like, it's just 1,000 videos like that where everyone's like, go, and like one person's like, make sure you do this. I'm like, yeah, I know, get the fuck out, go. There's, it's heightening the tension and stuff like that.
So they all jump through, and like Faile is in such a hurry that she like races her horse through, and when Perrin reaches the other side, she's on the ground, like has rolled, like got thrown off her horse because of the speed variable. The like time differs on either side.
I kind of think of it the way, how when light passes through something that has a different index of refraction, it bends. And so you get this like if you look at a pencil in a glass of water, it looks like it's been cut and shifted. And so I imagine there's a similar effect when you go through a gateway. If you go through too fast, that shifting is, you go from moving at a certain momentum when time's going much faster, you're going to come off that horse moving like way too fast. You're just going to fly off the top of it.
Right. What happens when the back end of you is moving faster than the front end?
Yeah.
Head over heels. But
and that's what happened to Faile. It's like she literally got launched off her horse.
Yeah, it seems to happen to everyone because they're all rushing out, and for good reason. Because as Loial, he comes out last. The Aiel are already setting up, getting ready for the Trollocs to pour through. But what they don't, we just see a couple of Trolloc hands and like half their bodies get out as they're sucked back in by Machin Shin, and Loial's closing the door at that point.
Didn't quite make it. Like, but again, the jumping off a bridge as it collapses and all the bad guys are still on it.
Yeah.
Very, very cinematic.
Abruptly, Loial came hurtling out of the Waygate, leaping out of a dull, silvery mirror with his own reflection growing behind him, and rolled across the ground. Almost on his heels, 2 Trollocs appeared, ram's horns and snout, eagle's beak and feathered crest. But before they were more than halfway out, the shimmering surface turned dead black, bubbling and bulging, clinging to them. Voices whispered in Perrin's head, 1,000 babbling mad voices, clawing at the inside of his skull. Bitter blood, blood so bitter, drink the blood and crack the bone and suck the marrow, bitter marrow. Sweet screams, sing your screams, tiny souls, acrid souls, gobble them down. So sweet the pain, on and on. Shrieking, howling, the Trollocs beat at the blackness boiling around them, clawed to pull free as it sucked them deeper, deeper, until only one hairy hand remained, clutching frantically, then only darkness, bulging outward, seeking. Slowly, the Waygates appeared, sliding together, squeezing the blackness so it oozed back inside between them. The voices in Perrin's head finally stopped. Loial rushed forward quickly, to place not 1, but 2 3-lobed leaves among the myriad of leaves and vines. The Waygate became stone again, a section of stone wall, carved in intricate detail, standing alone, on a sparsely wooded mountainside. Among the myriad leaves and vines was not 1, but 2 of Endosaur leaves. Loial had replaced the trefoil leaf from inside, on the outside. The ogre heaved a deep, relieved sigh. That is the best I can do. It can only be opened from this side now. He gave Perrin a look, at once anxious and firm. I could have locked it forever, by not replacing the leaves. But I will not ruin a Waygate, Perrin. We grew the ways and tended them. Perhaps they can be cleansed some day. Cannot ruin a Waygate. It will do, Perrin told him.
I'm enjoying the discussion in the Discord about how the change in time would cause a reflection of light to come off, and how it would cause that smoky, sort of like a lens between time.
Cool.
Interesting ideas.
And as Falron just said, cue Unfettered 3 after...
Right. Perhaps they can be cleansed someday. I wonder if we'll see that. We will, hopefully.
Did you read it?
When Unfettered 3... Did I read what?
There was someone sent me recently the little clip.
Yeah, totally. When it's him and a couple of the Aes Sedai and some of the Ashaman about to enter.
Yeah.
And he says, like, all right, remember, don't channel when you go in there. And she's like, why are you bringing a bunch of channelers? And he's like, listen, it's corrupted. It's tainted. Only channel if you have to.
Right.
No, it's funny because I actually just read it before we sat down.
Oh, really?
I was reading that. I was reading that this afternoon. It was because I read this chapter and I was like, oh yeah, that reminds me, I need to reread that.
Yeah, it was Cody that sent it to me. Thanks, Cody.
Thank you, Cody. It's publicly available. Brandon Sanderson posted it. He said that it was something they were sharing with us.
Yeah, hopefully there's more to come.
That's just like the first couple of pages. The
teaser, yeah.
Yeah, the teaser. He said it's the first... The finished selection is a meaty 20k words, so that's going to be a sizable chapter, if not more.
Oh, I don't even have a good scale for that. How many pages is 20,000 words?
It's not nothing.
I guess pages is also a variable thing, too.
The last battle is 50,000 words.
Gotcha. That makes sense. That's hundreds of pages.
So that's like 200 pages, so if you figure, maybe a 50-page chapter, it's still pretty decent.
Nice. I'll take whatever WOT content I can get.
I know. I'm pretty excited about it.
Our party has arrived in Manetheren, and after a good scare, Loial explains to Faile that was Machin Shin, and that he says he even pities the Trollocs, like what a terrible death. And Perrin has the thought he does not pity the Trollocs.
Yeah, he's seen them eat people. He has the wolf prejudice against them, I guess. The not naturalness.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems almost appropriate to have something as not natural as the Black Wind take out the Trollocs to me.
And RJ gives us a nice description of the surrounding area, what it looks like. And it looks to me like what a foresty place looks like when you get up to like 8,000 feet or so, which is like right under the tree line. So when things start to get scraggly and they don't grow as well, because they're up in the mountains pretty high above Emonds Field somewhere.
Where bare rock showed in the valley below or on the surrounding slopes, it glittered like glass. There's a layer of solid obsidian about a foot down.
Yeah.
Where Eldrine...
I didn't even catch that, but that makes sense.
Because they are at the Waygate, which is in the city that Eldrine turned into a sheet of glass.
Yeah. Nuked
2,000 years ago. So there's a little bit of soil on top, but it's really, really hard for trees to grow to any size in this area because they can't get through what I would assume is a solid melted sheet of rock.
Yeah.
And so once you get outside of what was Manetheren, the trees get bigger.
Yeah, and I also kind of wanted to point that out because in a little while here, Gall is saying like, "Oh wow, so this is what I imagined a forest would look like before I ever saw a forest." I just thought it was interesting because it's a kind of half forest where scrubby trees that can't grow very well, and they're up there in the wind, and the soil's crap, and a few things around, but they're in a more open area than a true forest.
Yeah, and the Aiel are like, "This is a forest, right?" It's like, no.
You'll see one tomorrow.
Gall has definitely seen forests at this point,
right.
But he's saying, like, before I came over the Dragon Wall, this is what I thought a forest looked like. It's like when the boys were in some of the smaller cities or, like, bigger towns, and they're like, "Wow, is this a city?" And Tom was just like, No, it's not. Just wait till you see the real cities, boy.
I forgot about that. He like covers his mouth and snorts.
Yeah, he's like totally laughing at them. City. Or isn't it like Barrelon that they're like, "Oh my god, this city is incredible,"
yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, I guess it's technically a city."
I guess this small trading post would seem impressive to you. And I skimmed over a bit there, but this is where we see the two white hawks.
Mm-hmm.
Arrow streaks up from the forest below somewhere and kills one, and the second one dives down and is consumed by ravens.
White-winged hawks.
Yes. And Perrin knows what that probably means.
Those are Raven's eyes. He's seen, remember back to the whole Elias Egwene, where they're running between two flocks of ravens,
mm-hmm.
and he saw the ravens go down on the fox and destroy it?
Yeah.
Kill it? He knows what a threat ravens are. And, was at the point of being willing to kill Egwene because of them. A flock of ravens is something that Perrin takes very seriously.
Yes.
And then, of course, the fact that it actually had an arrow rise from that obviously, screams Dark Friend, who hangs out with a bunch of ravens and kills hawks.
Right.
Dark Friends.
And Perrin has the thought, like, who would shoot a hawk this far from any farm? He would be like, I would understand if they were circling above your chicken coop or something, but why? Who would even be here? This is a second thought. Like, why would you be out this far at night?
Because he's meeting a bunch of Trollocs coming out of a Waygate.
Waiting for them. Yeah.
And while he's at it, might as well take down a few hawks that are pestering them. Because Slayer.
For the readout, I have Faile tending Perrin's wounds. He apparently requires some stitches. He got stabbed in the thigh pretty good.
And I always that contrast between her soft touch and her furious grumbles, because she's like, she's super mad at him for getting hurt.
Yes.
Right? That's like, she loves him and doesn't want him to get hurt, and so she's angry at him. But she's like taking care of him. It's very affectionate and very like sweet to me.
Yes, I thought it was cute and kind of motherly, for lack of a better term. Like when your mom is angry that you're bled on your jeans, but it's not really the jeans that she's worried about. But she's like, Faile is focusing her anger on this other thing. Does that make any sense? Or she's...
Oh, totally. Well, and she's thought to herself many times that I'll never sew for any man. And here she is sewing up his skin.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why she's like, I won't do
And then she looks at the coat and she's
shirt.
like, I'm not patching this, though.
I'll sew your flesh, but not your clothes. Not my job.
What do you think this is? And Perrin's like, I didn't ask for you to. And she's like, shut up.
Take care of your clothes better. Don't get them cut up. And that's like, you don't care about the clothes. It's man that she doesn't want to get cut up.
I'll not have you bleeding to death on me. That would be just like you, to die and leave me the work of burying you. You have no consideration. Hold still. Thank you, he said quietly.
She shows her concern for him by, saying, don't make my life harder, because I love you.
Yes. While he donned a clean shirt and a spare pair of breeches from his saddlebags, Loial stood fingering the slice in the side of his coat, 2 inches to the right, and he would not have left that island. Stamping his feet in his boots, he reached for his coat, and she flung it at him. You needn't think I'll sew that up for you. I've done all the sewing for you I mean to do. Do you hear me? I didn't ask you to. You needn't think it, that's all. She stalked away to help the Aiel tend each other in Loial. That was an odd group. The Ogier with his baggy breeches off, Gall and Chiad eyeing each other like strange cats, Faile spreading her ointment and wrapping bandages, and all the while shooting accusing glares at him. What was he supposed to have done now? Perrin shook his head. Gall was right, he decided. As well try to understand the sun. Oh man, I didn't read that part before, where Gall says essentially something like, women are like the sun. He's like, you need them to live. Life wouldn't be worth living without it, but it will exact its price from you. It's like there's no choice to be made. He was like...
The sun burns.
But you need it to survive. Even knowing what he had to do now, he was reluctant. Especially after that had happened in the Ways, with the Fade. Once, he had seen a man who had forgotten he was human. The same could happen to him. Fool. You only have to hold out a few more days, just till you find the White Cloaks. And he had to know. Those ravens. He sent his mind questing across the valley for wolves. There were always wolves where men were not, and if they were close, he could talk with them. Wolves avoided men, ignored them as much as possible, but they hated Trollocs for unnatural things, and despised myrrdraal with a hatred too deep to hold. If shadowspawn were in the mountains of mist, the wolves could tell him. But he found no wolves. None. They should have been there, in this wilderness. He could see deer browsing down in the valley. Perhaps it was just that no wolves were close enough. They could talk over some distance, but even a mile was too far. Maybe it was less in mountains. That could be it. His gaze swept across the cloud-capped peaks and settled on the valley's far end, where the ravens had come from. Maybe he would find wolves tomorrow. He did not want to think of the alternatives.
I wonder if Slayer hunts the wolves because he plans on leading the wild hunt, being part of it, and knows that wolves can threaten.
I think probably for many reasons. For one, I would think that whatever Slayer's up to, the wolves will oppose. So trying to move Trollocs through that area will be impossible if there's a big pack of wolves in the area. But also,
hunting.
In the dream, they're going to be messing with his plans. And yeah, who knows? He could be thinking as far out as the last battle. And, that removing wolves from the dream forever, it will ultimately benefit him. The more dead, the more likely he is to win.
Right, because once that horn blows, a bunch of those wolves come back and, essentially act as wolf heroes of the horn and stop. That's what the last hunt is. And so, not to mention, until I run Riyadh, they help Perrin quite a bit, and Gall.
Yeah.
And, I think he just likes to hunt. I think they're a challenge. They're the predator. He enjoys killing... Yeah, Travis was just about to say, he enjoys killing wolves because they are the top predator. And for him, that's a bit about proving himself as better. Yeah.
Ogier's saying something about serving to create darkhounds?
We do know that wolves are corrupted darkhounds, right? Darkhounds are wolves that have been bitten by other darkhounds. So maybe he's somehow, by killing them, he's taking their souls. I wouldn't think so. I think he's just hunting them, to be honest, because I think they actually do have to be bitten. Maybe killing the wolves allows their souls to be taken by the Dark One. That's possible.
That's a good theory.
Seems kind of horrific, yeah. Especially if he's killing them in the world of dreams. But we do know if he kills the wolf in the world of dreams,
they die forever.
Then they're dead forever.
Haber explains that to us, I think for the first time in the next chapter.
Oh yeah, maybe being killed in Tar doesn't totally destroy your soul. Maybe it just gives it, the Dark One can take it, corrupt it, turn it into a Darkhound. Yeah, all Hopper says is the soul disappears forever. He doesn't know what happens to it. He doesn't know that it's destroyed. He just knows that it's gone and never comes back, but what if they're Darkhounds?
Yeah, and I've always seen Slayer as like Perrin's dark counterpart.
Sure.
He's like Rand's Ishmael.
And what if part of what Slayer's job is to create the Wild Hunt? So his job was to create wolves for the Wild Hunt, or Old Grim, which is another name for the Dark One. Nerd up, Matt's if Perrin's counter is Slayer, Matt's counter would be Faine.
Yeah, that's the way I
Because of the Shadow Logoth connection.
Ishmael, Rand, Perrin, Slayer, Matt, Faine. That's the way I saw it, and the dagger connection and all that. The Golem is kind of also like his nemesis for quite a while, but
yeah, I think of that more as like shadowspawn that he has to deal with.
Right.
And
Faine's kind of all over the place too. It's not quite a clear. It's not
designed to be 1-to-1 match.
I just see it that way in my head.
And with women, I always think of Nynaeve and Moghedien as opposites, Elaine and Grendel.
Yeah.
And then
Moraine, Lanfear.
Yeah, Moraine, Lanfear.
Kind of cancel each other.
Egwene. I actually think about Egwene and Messana as sort of the two leaders of their respective towers.
The white and black.
The white, yeah.
Kind of.
Kind
that
of.
doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean.
Right.
What about Min? I'm not sure if she has a counter.
A dark side Min counter? Yeah. And Avienda, you can push the metaphor to a certain point and try and match them up, but at some point you're stretching it. Yeah, Semirog, Codswain, I think that's a good... I'd pair those two up. That's a good one. But then you can go into Tuon and talk about Tuon, Semirog, and...
Is Semirog the one Codswain breaks?
Yeah, she's the one she spanks.
Yeah.
Again, talking about spanking.
Humiliation.
Jordan had to think of spanking.
Same way Perrin breaks the Aiel, the Shaido. Or the Brotherless? I don't know. One of the like Shaido warriors later. When Perrin cuts the dude's hands off.
Yeah, there's no spanking there.
It's about, like, mentally break him. No, I'm not saying it's spanking. I'm just saying they...
I was like, I thought you were saying he spanked the Shaido to break him.
No,
and I was like, no.
It's just using an alternative method to break their mind rather than their body.
Okay, now I have an image of Perrin spanking the Brotherless in my head, and that's just fucking hilarious.
I don't think that would work.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?